Hello and welcome back to the Omaha Podcast, where Omaha entrepreneurs actually help your business grow. I'm your host, Matt Tompkins of Two Brothers Creative, and as a business owner, would you speak out publicly on a controversial issue that you are passionate about if it meant losing customers? Or maybe you don't take a stand and that hurts your business. Over 50% of consumers demand companies take a stand on an issue that they're passionate about. But for a small business owner, that can be scary territory. On today's episode, Senator Megan Hunt is our guest, and I'm excited to have a longtime friend here to give you the survival guide for when to speak out on an issue. She's an activist, an ally, a state senator, and a small business owner who has balanced her passion for important issues with owning businesses and being a great mom. Should your business speak out on a social issue? When I look back at when I started as an intern in radio, I was joined by someone who was I have to admit, a much better intern, and then has gone on to just far surpass anything I could do. In fact, every time I see something new that they have done, I just feel lazy and incomplete. And of course, I'm talking about Megan Hunt, who is here on the podcast with us today. I was like, 16, 18 years ago?
Matt, I'm blushing. What a warm introduction. But I was wondering if you were going to talk about how we met. We really do go way back into the production booth at radio station, just fooling around and had no idea what was going to be in store for either of us. But
they literally called that studio the toilet studio because it was about the size of a bath, just a toilet. And then it was right next to both the bathrooms, right? Like you're 2 feet away, right?
Yep.
So it was, real classy. But we had so much fun, and it was such a great experience. And then to look back and kind of see the path that we've taken, especially you. And I look back that today having you on, we're talking about when a company should speak out on an issue, and I think you've kind of walked this balance so effectively and so well, not just being in politics and representing the folks in Dundee there in the state legislature, but before that with activism, and you're a small business owner, first with Hello Holiday and now with Shop 59 in Benson there. So when you look back, was any of that intentional, planned out, or it was just, this is who I am, I'm going to learn as I go, adapt as I move?
Well, let me tell you, none of it was intentional at all. And one thing I was thinking about when sort of preparing to do this podcast with you is, I have a feeling you're going to ask me about what's your advice to business owners and what kinds of things would you recommend people do? And, when I got started as an entrepreneur, I was 18 and I was making wedding dresses. And I went on to start a co-working space in North Downtown in the Mastercraft building in 2010, and went on to, kind of grow that and start a clothing business. And now I run a stationery shop and I'm a state senator. But none of this was the plan. Mm-hmm. I went to college for German language. I thought I was going to maybe be an English teacher or something, and in life, these opportunities open in front of you and you have a choice. It's do I want to do kind of a risky, weird thing that might fail, or do I want to stay comfortable? And I feel like most opportunities I've had in my life, I decided to do the risky, weird thing, telling myself oh, well, if it fails, what's the worst that can happen? It's not that bad. I'm young, and I'm not as young anymore, but now I'm too far gone. I've gone too far down the rabbit hole and I don't know how to undo it. And
I think I got that advice from somebody at the same radio station, actually, and I was trying I did the same thing. You and I are very similar in just
well, you're very entrepreneurial. You are.
And I don't think I realized that until in recent years, mm-hmm. Because I didn't see it as that. I just saw it. I don't know what I defined it as.
We're just trying to have fun.
Yeah.
We're just trying to do something that we enjoy that makes us not hate our lives.
And it has an impact, I think, in some way. But yeah, I had somebody tell me, said, Matt, just go for it. Take the risk. I mean, you're not even 30. You got plenty of time to start over. And now I'm I'm 41 and still plenty of time to start over. So I'm the same way. It's interesting how you have walked that balance, as I said, between being an entrepreneur, business owner, and then specifically with issues. This has become a totally different landscape, I think, in recent years. I found this, they did some research, and it's interesting. 53% of employees and consumers expect or demand that every brand take a stand on an issue that they're passionate about. And you see companies that are punished when they don't stand up for issues. You see companies try and, we saw this in 2020, try and tap into a trending thing on social media, and it backfires.
Sort of capitalize on it instead of being authentic with it.
Yeah, like even with like celebrity deaths, they do that. I think somebody who had like when Prince passed away, it was like changing everything to purple, and and so it can backfire. And so I wanted to have this conversation with you to help a small business owner and entrepreneur just kind of where do you start? How do you know if you should take a stand? What should you take a stand on? How should you do it?
Well, I think all of us have internal integrity and morals and values that actually drive us into the types of work that we pursue. I mean, I think most entrepreneurs and small business owners, especially, here in Nebraska and the Midwest, we kind of get into business in order to help people. Okay, well, go deeper than that. Like, what is the underlying motivation and values informing why you want to help people? Like, are you really passionate about sustainability and climate? I mean, that's like a pretty specific thing. Or are you really passionate about access and rights and agency and independence and things like that? And we all have different reasons that we get into this work. And I think that we need to interrogate that within ourselves and ask ourselves, like, what is my motivation here? Because that's your answer. I have developed a reputation over almost 2 decades of entrepreneurship of really blending the personal and the professional and the political. And a big reason that that's so easy to do today is because of social media. I mean, we all use social media to grow our businesses. And 15 years ago, I was on Twitter and Instagram talking about my business, talking about sales we were having, talking about new designs we were bringing out, but also talking about my baby who was, having their first words. Or
you're an OG to social media. Like Megan dominated. I'll say that from an observer. Facebook, when it was first out, it was like, I had never really seen somebody I knew, like in my own circle, who had like that much of a presence and influence. I mean, even like the whole merge lanes thing.
Oh my God,
can be like
zipper merging.
Zipper merge, yes. I mean, like it's just wild to see the influence and impact you can have. And if you're using it for the right reasons, you can have a really positive impact too.
Well, again, like none of that was really intentional either. I think I have this like deep character flaw, which is like I'm a huge oversharer, and I also have a big ego. So it's like everybody give me attention for my dumb opinions. And that is like the perfect storm to be promoting yourself, growing your business, sharing your life on social media. And I'm not saying this is like a great thing, but I think that for everybody listening to this, if you're willing to kind of decide what it is you want to reveal to your audience, whether that's a customer or, friends and community members in your neighborhood, whatever it is, that gives people an opportunity to feel emotional about the same things that you care about. And, I have championed a lot of leftist causes in Omaha throughout my professional career, through my businesses and all of that. And that can sometimes be controversial. But even people who don't agree with my positions on things, they know from knowing me that my views are authentic. And I think that even when you disagree with what someone thinks, if you know that it's coming from like an informed, passionate place, you respect that. I respect that in other people. Other people who take stances that I wouldn't take, if they know why they think that and it's with integrity and passion, I still respect that. It's like, good for you. I'm glad you say that. People should say what they think about things, because that gives consumers the choice of where they're going to spend their money and who they're going to support.
Well, that's such a great point to hit on, because we try and think, okay, what's the popular thing I should support now? Or I'm going to choose between these issues based on what I think my, constituents or customers want and what aligns with it. And I think first you have to know, really backstepping, first you have to know your core values. Like, what are your core values for yourself, for your company? And then after that, what are you, like you said, what are you truly passionate about? Because you're right. I've seen there are people who speak out on issues, or they support an issue that I do not agree with whatsoever. But if I know that there's a reason that they believe it, and they're actually going to have a discussion and back it up, that's totally different than somebody who just says, just because, shut up, I don't want to talk about it, it's just then it's disingenuous, and people aren't looking to agree with everybody or have everybody agree with them, but they do want everybody to be authentic and true to who they actually are.
When we talk about these romantic ideas of like Main Street and the good old days and, the America we're trying to go back to and the the community building and the camaraderie, that's what we're really talking about. And in the good old days, 50, 60 years ago, people were still having the same disagreements and arguments that we're having today, but they weren't so divided over it that they couldn't even go to their neighbor's business and buy, something from their business because they disagreed about something. And that's what I think we have to get back to. And, whether it's in the legislature, as a progressive, I work with lots of people who don't agree with the things that I do and vice versa. But because we know where those values are coming from and we are able to talk about them, it's okay. Like, we can still be friends and work together. And the same is true on Main Street, in our neighborhoods, in our communities. We don't have to, boycott each other because we don't agree on things, because we do agree on a lot of things.
We do. And I would say most people agree on like 80% of the thing. Even in politics, most of it, okay, why do you want that? Well, I want it for this reason. Okay, I want it for that same reason. It's just we got to figure out a compromise. And we can't do that when it's just a total shutdown, lockout. You're dead to me. I'm not even going to, acknowledge you. And it's just, it can get really, and that's, I think, what businesses are afraid of. They think, well, if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, I'm going to get shut out or banned or protested. And so I think they avoid the risk. I mean, honestly, it's a calculated risk.
That's accountability.
Yeah.
You can't avoid accountability, and we're all going to mess up sometimes. I mean, my businesses and me personally, of course, have gotten criticized for, frankly, kind of messing up. And when you make yourself available and vulnerable to people and reveal something about your values to them, you have to be prepared for the consequences of the feedback about those values. And, you can decide, am I going to listen to people and consider what they're saying, or am I going to dig down deeper and just double down on the thing I did that maybe upset some people? And, for example, when I ran Hello Holiday, after the Pulse shooting in Orlando, which was the biggest, massacre of at that time or something.
Which is sad to
which is no longer exactly. Yeah. But we put out a sign on the sidewalk that said "F the NRA." This was controversial. We got a lot of feedback about this.
What did the F stand for? I don't know.
Forget.
Yes, forget.
But a lot of people gave us feedback about that. Neighborhood people were like, we don't want to see that. And I thought about it and I was like, no, I'm not sorry that I said that. I actually really stand by that. And then there have been other times where, we've gotten criticism for the representation in our advertising, or, sometimes kind of stepping on somebody's toes who's already doing the work on something. And you think about those things and it's like, no, you have a point. And how can I make it right? And I'm sorry for, not keeping that in mind. And so it also takes some humility, I think, to admit when you're wrong. But at the same time, it takes some strength to stand in your values and say, no, I did that and I would do it again and I'm not sorry. But you have to question yourself and examine your views to know what those ways are, what those things are that you're going to bend on and what you're not.
And one side effect of the gridlock, specifically when it comes to politics and where social issues, are just, the fight word of the day, with that being gridlocked, really the only way we're seeing things being pushed forward and on social issues in recent years has been by businesses, by corporations or companies, for whatever their motivation might be, kind of pushing forward on issues. And we've seen that for good or bad. Maybe they don't step up when they should have, or it's too late, or maybe it's the perfect time to kind of move a cause forward. I think that's an important thing to consider, though, is, are you having an influence on the issue that you and your company is standing up to support? Or are you just doing this for just to say you did it, which I don't think that comes across well to anybody.
Absolutely. And when you say that, that makes me think of something else that's important to say, which is, whatever issue we're talking about, whether it's climate justice or gun safety or racial justice or housing or whatever the issue is that is up in the community consciousness at the time, any position that a business takes on that issue has trickled up from the people, has come up from the grassroots organizing and support that has swelled around that issue. And so I think that's also something that businesses and business owners need to keep in mind, is the humility and the gratitude to the people who are kind of on the ground in the streets doing the work to raise consciousness around these issues, to the point where you see like Pepsi making an advertisement about Black Lives Matter, or you see Adidas coming out and doing something around reproductive justice. And it's not typically because these companies have always wanted to talk about this issue. It's because they've been pushed by the people to do that. So whether you're a business owner or a regular person, like standing up for what you believe in, no great change has ever happened in our nation's history without that groundswell of grassroots support. So it's just businesses responding to what the people are saying matters to them.
It's like you said earlier, you mentioned you have to know your identity as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and you also have to know who your customer is. You have to know like who is it that I'm targeting, or that I'm helping with my service or goods here. And if you're just ignoring what is important to them, or if it doesn't align with what's important to you, you can make that's where you can come across, maybe make the wrong decision, or just I guess just kind of fall to the wayside and not be a part of the conversation. One example that we're all familiar with, and this involves entrepreneurs, I think, in a lot of ways, because they all are, is professional athletes. And you hear this, there's a lot of this kind of fight over, shut up and play, or we don't want politics in our music, or we don't want social issues in our sports that we watch, or any of that stuff. And
we don't want people to be people.
Yeah, which I think
denying their humanity, basically. Anyway, go on.
No, that's what you're alluding to, though. I think is that it already is. No matter, like, they say that about work, which drives me just drives me nuts, because they say this at work. They say, don't leave the emotions at the door. Like, you have to check your emotions out. This is work. Like, you can't get emotional at work. Everything is emotional. You can't say.
Sounds like terrible work.
It's when you don't. It's when you try and block it out or compartmentalize the emotions and don't actually process or deal with them. That's the recipe for a disaster in a workplace, and just for your overall success in your career. And it's the same thing with this. Like, emotions are a part of us as humans, and having these values, these core values where we believe in an issue or support a cause, that is who we are. And so you can agree with that or
not your job.
But I think like the idea of just, businesses just need to shut up and sell me shoes, or an athlete needs to just stop talking about this issue. I mean, that hasn't been the case throughout the history of our country either. It's not, this isn't a new development. We just maybe see it more on social media.
Yes. Yeah. Just kind of this thing of like denying the wholeness of a person. It's like, okay, so what is a person supposed to do? Go into work and leave their emotions at the door so they can earn money to go pay $500 out of pocket for the therapy they need for the life that they're living, where they can't live in any kind of authenticity, so they can make money for someone else. This is a tangled web of a lot of problems with our culture, right? Is the suppressing of emotion, the inaccessibility of services that we need in order to like have a thriving, successful life, whether we're a worker or a business owner or whatever it is that we do. But yeah, just asking people to like define themselves by what they do, whether that's an athlete or a business owner. Your job is to sell me stationery and clothing, not to pop off about abortion. It's like, go shop somewhere else then. I don't care. I'm a whole person. And when someday I won't be a state senator anymore. And someday I won't run my stationery shop anymore. Someday my child will be grown and I won't have a kid at home anymore. All of these experiences that we have in life are temporary. They just are. And so we can't define ourselves and make our whole identity around
that one
place that we're inhabiting at this moment in time. The first thing about me isn't that I'm a state senator or a politician or a mom or a business owner. Like, we're all very complicated people, and it's okay to explore that and admit that.
Yeah, we all live in that. We all live in that gray space. We try and make things black and white, but that's not where anything actually is.
Right.
So I found this, and I wanted to kind because I wanted to.
I was going to say this got so philosophical,
but to kind of bring it back to, because that's my goal with this podcast. I want this to be something Omaha businesses and entrepreneurs can actually take action on and use, not just the theoretical, because you have to have actual steps. Or what are the 3 questions I should ask or answer? What are the 3 questions I should answer to know if I should speak out on an issue and how to do it? So I did some of the old Googling, and this was.
Did you log on? Did you go on the World Wide Web?
I logged on to the interwebs and all of them. And so I found this is from the Harvard Business Review, which I read daily. No, I don't. But it was interesting, and we also included this, and there's a bunch of other links, resources in our show notes here. So I want to see what you think. Like, these are the 3 questions they say. If you answer with 3 yeses, speak out as a leader on the issue. 2 yes answers, you speak out as a follower. 1 yes answers, you don't speak out, but you continue to monitor the issue. 0 yes answers, do not speak out on the issue. So the questions are, does the issue align with your company's mission and values? I think that's an important one.
I agree. Yes, it has to be relevant to the work your business is doing, whether it's like literal direct product and services that you're providing or the underlying mission and values behind what you do, for sure.
Can you influence the issue in a meaningful way? I think this is one that a lot of people don't. I like to ask people, like, what are we actually accomplishing? There's a lot of kind of rage reaction with a multitude of things, and we'll just shut this down, or we'll just end this, or we'll ban this person or this group or whatever it might be, and we don't think, well, wait, who are we actually impacting? Like, who are we helping by shutting this down? So I think knowing if you're actually having a meaningful influence is probably pretty important.
Yep. Am I helping?
Yeah. Am I helping? Exactly.
Am I being helpful or am I mad?
Yeah. On social media, we see that constantly with individuals where it's, I'm outraged. Well, who is outraged? And are you helping them?
That's okay though. Outrage is step 1. When people are outraged but not being productive, I don't hold that against them because we've all been there.
Yeah.
And that's really step 1. That's like, okay, you're dipping the toe into activism and advocacy through the platform you have as a community leader. Good. About time. What next?
Yeah. What's next? So that's the question number 2. And then, will your constituencies agree with speaking out? So, constituency, that maybe not sound like, well, I don't have constituents in my business, but no, your customers.
These are the people who give you the authority and the power to do what you do, whether that's a community member or a customer or a literal constituent in some of our cases. But
it is something to consider. With that, I think there's a caveat maybe that I was thinking of, that, don't do something simply because your constituents want it or demand it. It has to align. That's why it has to align with that first question of your company's mission and your values. Otherwise, it can just be, that's an easy recipe to blow up in your face, because you're just doing it for some other person's reason and not for your own, or not because you genuinely support that issue.
Right. I think that it is a shame for businesses or community leaders if they have a platform that people look to them that they have access to lots of groups of people, and they don't use it for any kind of social good. And I think, you cited this statistic earlier that 53% of people want corporations, want businesses, want community leaders to take a position on an issue that matters to them. That is what that platform is for, to the people who follow you. And it would really be a waste of all of the work you've done to build your business, of all the investment and, sweat equity that you've put into growing something, if you don't use that to make the world a better place. And selling widgets or doing a service isn't necessarily, hitting the ceiling on what your capacity can be to make a positive contribution. So that's what got me first involved in kind of joining my entrepreneurship with my activism. Is I realized I built something really successful. We have a ton of customers. We have a lot of eyes on the content that we create. And how can I share this platform with other organizations that are working toward other causes that matter to me? Because, I was selling dresses and skirts and shoes and making people feel really good about themselves by the product I was selling, but we hadn't hit the ceiling on the good we can do. So the way we kind of got into this, and it was a formula that ended up really working for us that I still do now at my stationery shop, is instead of trying to come out as a leader on an issue, for example, food insecurity, we don't come out and say we're leading an initiative to collect food and we're going to be the leaders on this and come and we'll tell you what we can do about it. Instead, we share our platform with community organizations that are already leading on the issue. So instead of that saying, let's connect with Sienna Francis House and come to this event at my store and we're going to have, the director of partnerships here to talk about what they do. And then we're going to, donate 30% of our revenue this month to this organization, whatever, things like that. We became kind of well known in Dundee for doing this period product drive every year where people would bring in, menstrual hygiene products, tampons, pads, all of that stuff. And it just filled up our store. The whole front window of the store was just covered in tampons. And that caused a stir. That got a lot of people talking. And it had people talking about homelessness and the dignity of being able to go through these normal biological processes and be clean and, be able to take care of yourself. And these are things that a lot of people hadn't thought about before, but it was brought to our attention by a nonprofit community organization. So we said, you're doing everything you can to get out the word and to raise money and build awareness and help people who are in need. And I'm just selling dresses. So how can I help you?
Yeah.
How can we merge our constituencies, our customers and our followers and our fans and do something bigger than we could have done separately?
I think that's a good formula, like you said, because I think there's some fear or hesitancy in that, I'm not an expert on this. And what happens if they come at me with this counter argument? I don't know how to respond. And maybe don't put yourself in that position. You can still cause a good, maybe even more influence in a positive way on an issue than you could as the official expert leader, if you will.
Absolutely.
By just supporting that and standing with people. And I think the other important thing you hit on is supporting, like I said, the end result, what's happening, what are we actually influencing here? I think a lot of times we think of certain issues and we attach it to a person or a brand, if you will, and it's, I like or don't like this brand or this person because it's this, I'm not going to support that. Even though what's happening here is, no, we're just trying to help, families with food insecurities,
That's exactly
people who
right.
don't have a place to sleep at night. We want to help these people. That's what we're doing here. We're not making a statement. We're helping people. I think focusing on that.
Exactly. And I mean, let's be real, to take your point to a more extreme, at my stationery shop in Benson, if every time I tried to raise money for, abortion providers or for, climate justice or for Black Lives Matter stuff, anything that somebody thinks is controversial, they're going to get mad at me. And they're already mad at me because of stuff I do in the legislature. And it's you have to kind of remove your ego and your identity from the credit. It's not Megan Hunt's idea. It has to be, Megan Hunt has spent 20 years building a platform, so let's put these other organizations up on there too.
Here's what Senator Hunt is trying to do, and we want to do that. Help do the same thing.
Here's what I Be Black Girl in Omaha is trying to do. Come to my store and support them.
I think that's a really good point, and it leads me into kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which is something I have experience with this, but in a completely different realm, in a completely different space. Kind of working in entertainment and radio and television, you're going to have people who attack you. There's the social media.
Oh, when you put yourself out there.
Yeah, anytime you put yourself out there. So I think there's a fear for that for entrepreneurs. They think, I don't want to have to deal with fighting with people. I don't want to have to defend this. I want to support it for the right reasons. I want to speak out. I want to, help this cause, but I just don't want to deal with the counter, the other side that's going to come at me. And you deal with this with politics. I know you've dealt with this on a personal level with issues as an activist and then as a business owner. So some of it does get to you inevitably, but I think what are the keys for you to, or for an entrepreneur listening here, to survive, get through, and overcome the attacks, the negativity that can really have a harmful impact on your mental well-being?
That is a good question. I think first we have to be open to criticism, and we have to be sensitive to the fact that even when we're working with our best intentions, despite what we wanted to happen, our impact can be harmful. And if you get feedback that your impact was harmful, consider that. think was it? Are they right? Are they partially right? And then instead of, retreating or digging your heels in deeper, reconnect with that person or these groups of people that have criticized you and ask what you can do to make it right. Because if your goal is to make the world a better place, do all these, rainbows and sunshine things, and people tell you you're not doing that, like maybe listen to that.
Yeah.
Maybe take that seriously. But, I don't think that entrepreneurs should be afraid of taking these kinds of risks because, think about who you are. The behavior to say, I'm going to put everything I have into a crazy idea, and if I don't do this idea, I don't think I'm going to be professionally fulfilled. That is like inherently so risky. It's like one of the riskiest things that we can do, and it's so brave and courageous. You have that bravery and courage inside you already. And if you've got a thought, if you've got like a cause that matters to you, if there's an issue politically in the world that you are activated around and you want to use your business as a platform to support that, you're already used to taking risks. Just try it.
Yeah.
Try it and be humble and have the humility to try and earnestly fix it if it goes wrong. But don't go into it with the expectation it's going to go wrong. It probably won't. If you're being authentic and you're open to conversations and you're using a platform in a way that is coming from a place of real deeply held passion for an issue, I think people actually really respect that.
They do, and you can apologize. You can if you make a mistake. I've done that before, where I posted or did something, and people came at me, and I'm like, actually, you know what? They were right. That probably wasn't as funny as I thought it was.
Yeah.
So you address it, you deal with it. But I think being able to look inside, question yourself is the key to being a critical thinker. You have to have that to be an entrepreneur and not let it destroy you. Because if your identity is wrapped up just in a product or a thing, that's a setup for failure and a lot of sad times.
Another thing is, let me tell you about the reality of cancel culture and, the world we live in today that can be so politically acrimonious, and that's maybe informing some of these fears people might have about diving in on an issue using their business as a platform. People forget so fast. When you look at Twitter and, you see a tweet and then you reload it and the tweet's gone and you're trying to scroll and find it. When you do the same thing on Instagram, you do the same thing on Facebook. We live in a scrolling world. Like, you look at your phone, you can go on any app on your phone and find something to be outraged about. I do this recreationally. I'm just like constantly on Twitter, like, oh my God, what's the world coming to? We all do that. Yeah. And give yourself some grace. Don't worry. The worst that can happen to you is not that bad. People be mad. People might be mad for a week. That's probably realistically the worst case scenario. And then they forget about it. You move forward in good intentions as a partner with your community, trying to make it better. And that's great. That's fine. It's not going to ruin your life if someone's mad at you.
It's when you pick at it. It's when you try and get involved in a maybe a not as productive way. That's when it actually gets bad. That's what makes it last longer. It's kind of like it's like a pimple. It's like if you just leave it, it'll go away pretty quick.
Just apologize. But, you start. Everybody will be apologize, do better, and nobody will be mad at you. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay to apologize. That's fine. So I want to stick around. I want to do an extra question here specifically for you, because I think it would be fun just to hear your answer on it. But I wanted to remind people, Shop 59, basically 61st and Maple there in Benson,
That's right.
And open Monday through Saturday, right?
You say that's a good question. On our door it says hours vary. This is something that I have come to over 20 years of owning a business, is like the stress of having to be there at a certain time every day. We're basically open like 11 to 7 every day, but we always post our hours on Instagram.
Okay.
So if there's ever like something different about the hours, we post that.
And what's this Instagram? Is this
It's Instagram.
Like
Instagram.gov.
Is this on the interwebs too?
Yeah, you log on, you can find that. But on Instagram, we're Shop 59.
And then if people want to contact you for an issue, they want to support an issue, they're a business, they're an entrepreneur. I know you're very accessible with the legislature. So I forget exactly your email address. I just emailed you to come on here, but how can people get a hold of you?
First of all, I'll tell people, if you contact me through pretty much any channel, I will get back to you because I really think it's important to meet people where they are. And it's like, if you want to talk to me on Instagram or Twitter or email or phone, I'll be there to hear you no matter what it is that's easiest for you to contact me. We're always telling people to contact their elected officials, but it's not easy to do that. So I try to make it easy for people. But you can email me at mhunt@leg.ne.gov. That's my Fed.
The official.
That's my Fed account.
Yeah.
But, you can also just email me meganhunt@gmail.com or send me a message on any old platform and I'll find it and I'll help you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I know you could talk about 20 different topics for this particular podcast, so we'll have to have you back on. If you want to see the bonus question I'm about to ask her, check us out on our YouTube channel, the Omaha Podcast, and you could check this out. Yeah, I don't know how I was going to end that, but it didn't really go that well. I was trying to do, like they call it in the business, a tease, drive them. No, it's
I love that.
Yeah, but I will ask Megan the question here. Check it out on our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us on the Omaha Podcast. Please subscribe now so you don't miss an episode. On the next episode of the Omaha Podcast, we have the keys to networking right here in Omaha. We're going to lay out the guide to which networks and which approach to networking works best. Plus, Van Dieb is our guest and an expert on building relationships to grow your business.